What if somewhere in history there existed a book that promised its reader the power to summon demons, command invisible spirits, uncover hidden treasure, and even learn the deepest secrets of the universe? A book so controversial that kings feared it, churches condemned it, and occultists risked everything to copy it by hand. But here's the greatest mystery. Did this legendary book really come from the biblical King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived? Or was that claim one of history's greatest deceptions? Tonight, we're opening one of the most infamous books ever written, The Lesser Key of Solomon. For over 3,000 years, the name Solomon has been associated with extraordinary wisdom. According to the Bible, Solomon inherited the throne of Israel after his father, King David. His reign is traditionally dated to around the 10th century BC. He became famous for judging difficult disputes, building the first temple in Jerusalem, and composing songs and proverbs. Yet outside the Bible, another tradition began to grow, one far darker. Ancient Jewish, Christian, and later Islamic writings slowly transformed Solomon from a wise king into something far more mysterious, a ruler who could supposedly command spirits, control demons, and force supernatural beings to obey him. These stories were not found in the biblical text. Instead, they emerged centuries later through legends, folklore, and mystical writings. And from those legends, a forbidden book was eventually born. Despite its ancient reputation, historians agree on one crucial fact. The Lesser Key of Solomon was not written by King Solomon. The oldest surviving manuscripts date from the 17th century, more than 2,000 years after Solomon's lifetime. Rather than being the work of one author, the book appears to be a collection of older magical traditions copied and combined in Europe during the Renaissance. Its true author remains unknown. That mystery has only added to its reputation. Why would anonymous scholars claim such a dangerous book came from Solomon himself? Because in the ancient world, no name carried greater authority. The Lesser Key of Solomon, known in Latin as Lemegeton Clavicula Salomonis, is actually divided into 5 separate books. Each explores a different branch of ceremonial magic. The most famous is called the Ars Goetia. This section describes 72 demons said to have been imprisoned and controlled by Solomon. Each spirit supposedly possesses unique powers. Some claim to reveal hidden knowledge. Others promise wealth, love, influence, or forbidden wisdom. Each demon is described with an elaborate appearance, title, and rank within an infernal hierarchy. Kings, princes, dukes, marquises, presidents, earls, an entire supernatural kingdom arranged like a royal court. The remaining books discuss angelic spirits, planetary intelligences, magical rituals, sacred prayers, and symbolic diagrams intended to protect the practitioner. This is where history becomes complicated. There is no historical evidence that Solomon ever imprisoned demons. The primary source for that story comes from an ancient work called the Testament of Solomon. Unlike the biblical books, this text is considered pseudepigraphal. In other words, it claims to have been written by Solomon, but scholars overwhelmingly agree it was written centuries later. In its pages, Solomon receives a magical ring from heaven. Using the ring, he commands demons to help construct the Temple of Jerusalem. The story is dramatic, but historians view it as religious literature, not historical fact. Still, its influence would echo across centuries. This is where history becomes complicated. There is no historical evidence that Solomon ever imprisoned demons. The primary source for that story comes from an ancient work called the Testament of Solomon. Unlike the biblical books, this text is considered pseudepigraphal. In other words, it claims to have been written by Solomon, but scholars overwhelmingly agree it was written centuries later. In its pages, Solomon receives a magical ring from heaven. Using the ring, he commands demons to help construct the Temple of Jerusalem. The story is dramatic, but historians view it as religious literature, not historical fact. Still, its influence would echo across centuries. By the 15th and 16th centuries, Europe experienced an explosion of interest in ancient knowledge. Scholars searched monasteries for forgotten manuscripts. Alchemy flourished. Astrology became fashionable. Secret societies appeared. Many intellectuals believed hidden wisdom from Egypt, Greece, Judaism, and early Christianity could unlock the mysteries of creation. Within this environment, grimoires, or books of magic, spread rapidly. The Lesser Key of Solomon became one of the most copied, not because people necessarily believed every word, but because it represented ultimate forbidden knowledge. Owning such a manuscript could be dangerous. In some places, it could even lead to accusations of witchcraft. One of the book's most fascinating features is its intricate symbols. Known as seals or sigils, these complex designs are said to represent individual spirits. Modern researchers have proposed several explanations. Some believe they functioned as ritual symbols within ceremonial magic. Others think they served psychological purposes, helping practitioners focus intense concentration during elaborate ceremonies. Still others argue they were simply traditional artistic conventions passed from one manuscript to another. No single explanation has been universally accepted. The symbols remain one of the book's greatest mysteries. Religious authorities viewed books like the Lesser Key with deep suspicion. Throughout history, many Christian leaders warned against attempts to contact spirits outside accepted religious practice. The concern was not merely about strange rituals, it was about spiritual deception. Church writings repeatedly argued that seeking supernatural power through magical ceremonies could lead believers away from God. As a result, grimoires were often banned, hidden, or destroyed. Ironically, attempts to suppress them only increased public fascination. Forbidden books have a way of surviving. Perhaps the biggest surprise isn't what's inside the Lesser Key of Solomon. It's what historians now believe the book truly represents. Rather than serving as proof that demons were once controlled by an ancient king, most scholars see it as a remarkable window into the human imagination. It reflects centuries of evolving religious beliefs, ancient folklore, Jewish mysticism, Christian theology, classical philosophy, and Renaissance curiosity. It tells us less about supernatural beings and far more about ourselves, our fears, our hopes, our desire to understand forces beyond human control. Even today, many mysteries remain. Who actually compiled the Lesser Key? Which earlier manuscripts inspired it? How much of its material came from lost texts that no longer exist? And why did so many intelligent people risk their reputations to preserve it? These questions continue to fascinate historians. Meanwhile, occult practitioners often interpret the book very differently, viewing it as a practical manual rather than simply a historical artifact. The debate continues. History, faith, folklore, and personal belief rarely offer simple answers. The Lesser Key of Solomon stands at the crossroads of history and legend. Verified evidence tells us it emerged in 17th century Europe from much older magical traditions, not from the hand of the biblical King Solomon. Yet its influence has been extraordinary. It has inspired centuries of debate, shaped occult traditions, influenced literature and modern entertainment, and earned a reputation as one of history's most mysterious books. Whether you see it as a historical curiosity, a work of symbolic ritual, or a collection of enduring legends, one truth remains undeniable. Few books have captured humanity's imagination quite like this one, and perhaps that is its greatest power. If this story has sparked your curiosity and you'd like to explore the text for yourself, you can support Ancient Chronicles 24 by purchasing a copy of the Lesser Key of Solomon through the link in the channel bio. Your support helps us continue creating deeply researched historical documentaries and uncovering the forgotten mysteries of the ancient world. If you enjoyed uncovering this forgotten chapter of history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Ancient Chronicles 24, and tell us in the comments, do you think the Lesser Key of Solomon is simply a fascinating historical grimoire? Or could there still be mysteries within its pages that history has yet to explain? Until next time, keep questioning the past because history always hides another secret